Imagine standing right in the middle of your living room. The air conditioning is humming, uh, everything feels perfectly comfortable.
Right.
But just a few inches away, like right behind your drywall, your house is quietly baking itself from the inside out.
Yeah, it's a crazy visual.
It really is. And all because a microscopic crack in your exterior paint, let's say yesterday's rain seep in. And now the intense afternoon sun is turning that trapped moisture into this highly pressurized vapor, actively rotting the wood framing of your home.
Exactly.
But from the outside, it just looks like a tiny, harmless chip in the paint.
I mean, it's a terrifying scenario when you really understand the physics behind it because, we are so conditioned to view exterior paint as just, well, as cosmetic.
Yeah, totally. Just picking a color.
Right, a purely aesthetic choice. We pick a nice coastal blue or a subtle beige just to keep the HOA happy, right? And we completely ignore the structural reality of what that layer of color is actually doing.
And that is exactly the mindset we are going to dismantle today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are looking at a really fascinating stack of 2026 reports and field analyses published by the Donenden House Painting Company, based right out there on the coast of Florida.
Some really great data in these.
Oh, absolutely. And our mission for this deep dive is to completely flip how you think about a simple coat of paint. Because we're not talking about decoration anymore. We are talking about critical infrastructure.
Yeah, highly engineered armor, really.
Exactly.
Huh.
Armor specifically designed to survive some of the most brutal environmental extremes on the planet. Okay, let's unpack this, because to truly appreciate the armor, I feel like we first have to understand the sheer violence of the environment it's actually protecting against.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the coastal Florida climate is essentially this highly efficient degradation machine.
Right.
You aren't just dealing with occasional rain. You have a constant barrage of year-round ultraviolet radiation, these torrential tropical downpours, and, well, perhaps most destructively, a thick, corrosive salt air that's just continuously blowing off the Gulf Coast.
Just relentless.
Relentless. If you leave untreated materials out in that environment, nature's going to reclaim them incredibly fast.
See, I was reading the section in the Dunedin report about the early warning signs of this degradation, and it's alarming how subtle they are. Like, they highlight this thing called chalking.
Yeah.
Chalking.
Because I always assumed, if I wiped my hand on an old house and it came away covered in this white powder, it just meant the house was dusty.
A lot of people think that, yeah. But that powder isn't dust. It's actually the chemical failure of the paint itself.
Wow.
Yeah, the intense UV radiation essentially bombards the surface until it breaks the chemical bonds of the paint's resin, which is, the glue holding it all together.
Okay, so it literally breaks the chemical bonds. Exactly. And once those bonds shatter, the resin deteriorates and it just leaves behind nothing but the loose pigment powder. That's chalking. Your armor is literally disintegrating into dust.
That is wild. And once it starts chalking, I assume peeling and hairline cracks aren't far behind.
They're the immediate next steps, yeah.
But I want to push back on the timeline here a bit, because I think a lot of people listening might have a cracked windowsill or some peeling stucco, and they think, well, I'll get to it next spring.
Oh, the classic procrastination.
All right. But the 2026 data makes it sound like a ticking time bomb. Is it really that fast acting? How quickly does a building actually fall apart once that paint barrier is breached?
What's fascinating here is that it accelerates much faster than a homeowner typically anticipates.
Really?
Yeah. When paint is intact, it acts as a highly functional waterproof membrane. But the moment you get a hairline crack, just a tiny one capillary action literally pulls the heavy coastal rain and the ambient humidity directly into the building's substrate.
Just to clarify for everyone, when you say substrate, you mean whatever the house is built out of, right? Like the porous stucco, the concrete block, or the wood wrap underneath.
Correct. The foundational materials.
Yeah.
And stucco, for example, is incredibly porous.
Right, like a sponge almost.
Exactly like a sponge. So water gets behind the paint layer and just soaks deep into that substrate. Then the Florida sun comes out,
Right.
And it heats the exterior of the house to over 120 degrees.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that liquid water trapped inside the wall turns into vapor, and vapor expands.
Oh, wow.
It essentially creates a mini greenhouse effect inside your wall, physically pushing the remaining paint off the house from the inside, which of course causes more peeling, letting in more water.
This brutal cycle. And then the wood rot sets in.
Right. Massive stucco failure, structural wood rot, black mold. What starts as like a delayed weekend chore turns into tens of thousands of dollars in structural repairs. And all because a 1 millimeter layer of chemical armor was compromised.
Unbelievable. So, knowing that the coastal climate and the corrosive salt air are just actively trying to dismantle the building day in and day out, how do property owners actually fight back? Because
Right.
obviously, you can't just grab a bucket of standard retail paint on sale at the hardware store and hope for the best.
No, definitely not. If you use standard paint in that environment, you might as well be painting with watercolors.
Right.
Standard acrylics cure into a relatively rigid layer. The solution for this kind of extreme environment requires premium elastomeric coatings, or these specialized 100% acrylic latex formulas.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting to me. I found the mechanics of elastomeric paint absolutely fascinating. For you listening, just imagine wrapping an entire house in a giant, ultra-durable rubber band.
That's actually a great way to picture it.
Right, because Florida has these intense thermal cycles, baking hot in the afternoon, rapidly cooling down during a heavy thunderstorm or at night. The actual concrete and wood of the house physically expand and contract every single day.
They do. And a rigid standard paint simply snaps under that microscopic movement. It just fractures. Elastomeric paint, well, as the name suggests, has elastic properties.
It stretches.
Right, it physically stretches and flexes with the building's thermal expansion, maintaining this continuous, unbroken shield over the substrate.
But wait, if it's this impenetrable, rubbery, waterproof shield,
Mm.
how does it deal with the vapor issue you mentioned earlier? Like, if moisture does somehow get inside from, say, a roof leak, wouldn't an elastomeric coating just trap it there permanently and rot the house even faster?
See, that is the genius of modern architectural chemistry. High-grade elastomeric paints are actually engineered for one-way vapor permeability.
A one-way street for water. Okay, how does that even work?
It all comes down to molecular size.
Hmm.
A droplet of liquid rainwater is massive compared to a single molecule of water vapor.
Okay, makes sense.
So the microscopic pores in the elastomeric coating are small enough to completely block the massive liquid water droplets from entering from the outside.
But just large enough to let the vapor out.
Exactly. They allow individual water vapor molecules to pass through from the inside out. It literally breathes. The house can exhale trapped moisture, but it won't inhale the rain.
That is brilliant. Just brilliant engineering. And the defense strategy isn't just about the flexibility of the paint either. The 2026 reports emphasize that color choice is heavily weaponized against the climate, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Choosing lighter exterior colors on the coast isn't just, a breezy design aesthetic to look like a beach house. It is basic physics. Lighter colors reflect a massive amount of UV radiation and infrared heat.
And by reflecting that energy rather than absorbing it, you dramatically reduce the thermal load on the building substrate.
Meaning it doesn't get as hot.
Right, the walls physically don't get as hot. This prevents the substrate from expanding to its extreme limits, which in turn protects the elastomeric paint from overstretching. Plus, it drastically reduces the energy costs required to cool the interior.
It's a win-win. But all of this high-tech, breathable rubber armor is completely useless if it doesn't actually stick to the wall.
Yeah, adhesion is everything.
And the Dundon Field Insights spend a massive amount of time on surface preparation, particularly regarding salt damage prevention. Because you can't just slap elastomeric paint over a wall covered in sea salt and chalky dust.
If you try that, the new paint will simply adhere to the layer of salt and dirt, not the building itself.
Oh, right.
Within months, it will just peel off in heavy sheets. Honestly, the preparation phase is arguably more critical than the painting phase itself.
Sounds like it.
It requires patching every microscopic crack, replacing failing sealants around all the windows, and priming the bare spots. But before any of that happens, you have to neutralize the coastal salt.
Right, and this is where I got a bit confused by the recommended protocols, because the reports are very firm that to prevent long-term salt damage, you should use routine soft washing.
Yeah. Soft one.
Why soft washing? If I have corrosive salt crusting all over my house, my first instinct is to fire up a high-pressure power washer and just blast it into oblivion.
It's such a common mistake, and it's one that actively destroys homes. Think about what we just discussed regarding the protective membrane, right? If you hit an elastomeric coating, or even older, weathered paint, with a high PSI power washer, you are applying thousands of pounds of pressure per square inch.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, you will literally slice right through the protective coating. Or worse, you will force liquid water up under the microscopic seams around windows and soffits, intentionally driving moisture deep into the substrate.
So you're basically causing the exact structural water damage you're trying to prevent.
Precisely. Soft washing relies on chemistry instead of brute force. It uses specialized, eco-friendly detergents and surfactants applied at low pressure, kind of like the pressure of a heavy rainstorm.
Okay, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah, these chemicals break the ionic bonds between the corrosive salt and the paint, dissolving the accumulation so it can just be gently rinsed away. It preserves the integrity of the flexible armor while entirely removing the corrosive threat.
They also tie vegetation management into this salt and moisture prevention strategy, which honestly makes perfect sense when you think about
It's
it.
a huge factor.
Right. If you have heavy tropical bushes pressed right up against your exterior walls, they're blocking airflow. They're creating this localized, permanently damp microclimate against the paint, trapping the ambient salt and moisture. It's basically an open invitation for algae, mold, and eventual paint failure.
You really just have to let the building breathe. Keep the bushes trimmed back.
Okay, so we've established how to armor a residential building against the wrath of the coastal climate. We have our breathable elastomeric shield. We are reflecting the UV rays. We are gently soft washing the salt away.
Check, check, and check.
But the Dunedin insights also cover commercial properties, retail shops, restaurants, hospitality venues along the coast. What happens when the threat to the paint comes from the inside?
It becomes an entirely different battlefield. A commercial property in a coastal zone is essentially fighting a war on two fronts. Outside, they face the exact same UV and salt degradation we just outlined, but inside, they are subjected to punishing, relentless human wear. The 2026 data notes that most commercial properties in Dunedin require full repainting every 5 to 7 years just to survive this dual threat.
Wow, 5 to 7 years. And in a business setting, failing paint isn't just a structural risk, is it? It's an immediate financial risk.
Oh, absolutely.
In hospitality or retail, first impressions dictate revenue. If a customer walks into a clinic or a high-end boutique and sees scuffed, stained, or peeling walls, it subconsciously signals neglect. But a pristine environment builds immediate silent trust.
And to maintain that pristine look, the chemistry of the paint has to change completely. Standard residential paint is engineered for the relatively mild wear of a family, maybe a dog brushing against the baseboard or a kid dragging a toy down a hallway.
Right, pretty low impact.
Exactly. Commercial environments face thousands of footsteps a day, heavy carts crashing into walls, and most significantly, the daily application of industrial-strength chemical sanitizers.
Okay, so how does commercial paint actually survive being scrubbed with harsh sanitizers every single night? The reports talk about it having a higher volume of solid binders, but what does that actually mean in practice?
To visualize this, you have to understand what paint is basically made of. It's essentially pigment for color, liquid solvents to keep it wet in the can, and binders, which are the resins that glue everything together.
Okay.
In standard paint, when the liquid evaporates, the binders form a nice, smooth layer. But in high-grade commercial coatings, they pack in a much higher density of these solid binders.
I'm picturing it almost like a microscopic suit of chainmail.
That's a brilliant way to look at it, actually.
Yeah.
As the heavy solvents evaporate, those dense binders interlock into an incredibly tight microscopic matrix. It leaves absolutely no porous gaps.
Wow.
So when an employee sprays a harsh chemical sanitizer on the wall, the molecule of the sanitizer literally cannot penetrate the matrix to break down the pigment. The dirt and chemicals just sit on top of this impenetrable chainmail, easily wiping away.
So it resists scuffing, it won't fade from chemical burns, and I saw they even mix in heavy-duty additives to fight off commercial-level mold and mildew.
Yeah, it's incredibly tough stuff.
Plus, the logistics of applying it are intense. You can't just shut down a bustling coastal restaurant for a week. The painters have to operate under strict overnight scheduling to minimize business downtime, utilizing rigorous ventilation and safety protocols.
Which naturally leads to an interesting question about value and application.
Exactly what I was thinking. If this commercial paint is engineered to be this indestructible, chemically resistant chainmail force field, why wouldn't a homeowner just go buy a few buckets of it for their living room? You roll it on once, and you practically never had to paint your house again, right?
It sounds super appealing, I know, but it's a severe miscalculation for a few reasons. First, commercial coatings can be incredibly difficult to apply properly without industrial equipment. They are thick and very unforgiving.
Ah, okay. Not very DIY friendly.
Not at all. Second, because of that dense binder matrix, they almost always cure with a higher, more reflective sheen. A wall that looks perfectly sterile and clean in a bright hospital corridor will look cold, glossy, and deeply uninviting in a cozy family living room.
You feel like you're living in a cafeteria.
Exactly. And honestly, you just don't need that level of protection at home. Unless you are running a forklift through your dining room or hosing down your couch with industrial bleach, standard premium acrylics are more than sufficient. You'd be paying a massive premium for a level of chemical resistance you will literally never utilize.
That makes total sense.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the Dundon insights highlight a shift in how businesses are actually choosing these commercial paints.
Why so?
Well, utilizing low-VOC, highly eco-friendly commercial coatings isn't just about indoor air quality anymore. It's a calculated decision to honor the cultural identity of a coastal town like Dundon, which places a heavy emphasis on marine sustainability.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. A business protecting its walls is simultaneously ensuring no harsh solvents off-gas into the local ecosystem.
Which perfectly brings us to the final and possibly most fascinating layer of this deep dive. We've protected the outside from the salt. We've protected the inside from the foot traffic and the chemicals. But how does the paint we choose actually influence the biological and psychological state of the people breathing and working inside those spaces?
This is where architectural chemistry really meets human biology. The interior paint of a home or business directly influences employee productivity, overall mood, and even customer buying behavior. It is a silent physiological trigger.
I was blown away by the specifics in the 2026 data on this. We always hear vague things like, blue is calming, but they actually quantified it here.
They really did.
Using specific muted blues and earthy greens in an office environment actively lowers the heart rate. It engages the parasympathetic nervous system, which directly reduces stress and measurably increases a worker's ability to sustain concentration.
It's science, yeah. Conversely, bright, warm tones like terracottas or subtle yellows energize a space by slightly elevating the heart rate, making them ideal for collaborative creative spaces.
Right.
But the psychological impact of the color is really only half the story. The physical makeup of the interior paint is actively interacting with your bloodstream.
You're talking about the VOCs.
Yes. Volatile organic compounds. For decades, traditional paints relied heavily on VOCs. They are essentially chemical solvents that keep the paint liquid in the can and help it level out smoothly as it dries on the wall.
But the problem is what happens while it's drying, right? And for years afterward.
Exactly. Because they are volatile, they evaporate at room temperature. That is the famous new paint smell.
Yeah, that headache-inducing smell.
Right. You are inhaling vaporized chemical solvents. They enter your lungs, cross into your bloodstream, and trigger your central nervous system. In a world where remote workers are spending 8, 10, 12 hours a day enclosed in a home office, the chronic off-gassing of traditional paint directly causes fatigue, brain fog, and severe headaches.
The 2026 insights emphasize that zero VOC paints use advanced water-based technologies that completely eliminate these chemical solvents.
Yep, completely gone.
So what does this all mean? Taking a step back, you are essentially using paint as a biological tool. You are literally purchasing increased focus, lowered blood pressure, and clean air for your nervous system just by choosing a zero VOC earthy green formula. That completely changes how I view the paint aisle at the hardware store.
It really elevates paint from a cosmetic afterthought to a foundational element of human wellness within a building.
Mm-hmm.
But naturally, engineering a space to this standard, especially the exterior armor required on the coast, carries a significant financial reality.
Let's look at the numbers because they are substantial. According to the 2026 reports, professional exterior painting for a standard 1,500 to 2,500 square foot home in the Dunedin area ranges from $5,000 to $8,500, which initially causes a bit of sticker shock.
It does, definitely. Until you deconstruct what that cost actually represents, you are not paying for the color. A vast majority of that budget goes toward the intense manual labor of coastal surface preparation, the soft washing, the meticulous patching of the substrate, the chemical sealants, and the high-grade elastomeric materials required to survive those brutal thermal cycles.
The report is also incredibly blunt about the DIY route. They strongly discourage anyone from trying to paint their own exterior in this specific climate. And looking at the chemistry we just discussed, I completely understand why.
Oh, it's a terrible idea.
Right. If you try to save $4,000 by buying retail paint and rolling it over a salty, chalky exterior wall on a Saturday afternoon,
You will fail. You just will. You won't achieve the necessary perm rating for breathability, you won't chemically neutralize the salt, and the finish will delaminate and peel within a year.
such a waste of time and money.
And you also take on the hidden costs of renting specialized scaffolding and the severe physical safety risks of working on ladders at height.
You try to save a few bucks, but you end up trapping moisture behind a failed paint job, and 3 years later, you're handing a contractor $30,000 to replace rotting wood framing. It is the very definition of a false economy.
It really is. This raises an important question, doesn't it? It forces you to audit your own environment. For anyone listening right now, consider the room you are sitting in.
Yeah, look around.
How are the colors and the chemical quality of the paint on your walls silently dictating your energy levels today? Is your workspace actively working against your cognitive focus?
It makes you look at every single wall with a new level of respect. So let's retrace the journey we took today. We started this deep dive looking at paint as just makeup, a purely cosmetic layer of color. But by pulling apart these 2026 insights from the coastal experts in Dunedin, we've discovered the hidden mechanics of our buildings.
The hidden armor.
Exactly. On the outside, paint is a highly engineered, flexible, waterproof armor actively fighting off structural rot, corrosive salt air, and extreme thermal expansion.
And in a commercial setting, it acts as a dense chemical chainmail, withstanding industrial sanitizers while silently building trust with every customer who walks through the door.
And on the inside of our homes, it functions as a psychological and biological tool, actively enhancing our ability to concentrate and preserving the purity of the air we breathe.
It is the ultimate unsung hero of architectural engineering.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
So to everyone listening, the next time you walk past a coastal house or a local business and you spot a tiny hairline crack or some chalky peeling paint, peeling paint, I want you to look closer. Do not just see an ugly wall that needs a touch-up. Recognize what it truly is, a critical breach in that building's armor. The invisible enemy is already inside the gates.
Absolutely. And to leave you with one final thought to explore on your own. Considering how these elastomeric coatings physically stretch and flex with the shifting temperatures, and how one-way vapor permeability allows a structure to exhale trapped moisture, while zero VOC formulas actively interact with the biology of the humans inside, is it time we discard the idea of paint as a static, dead layer of chemicals? Perhaps, moving forward, we should start viewing it as a living skin for our buildings, a complex breathing organ that flexes, exhales, and continuously interacts with both the extreme climate outside and the fragile human ecosystem inside.